Right now, 9:33. Let's turn our attention to another threat. We talked about the avian flu threat. We've talking about, talked about the threat from China, from Ukraine. What about the threat from AI? Well, Sam Altman, who's the chief executive of OpenAI, they're the company that created ChatGPT that everyone's been talking about, writing everyone's essays, and the clever AI that basically thinks like a human and can pretend to be human, have human responses. Well, he has been telling US politicians in a Senate committee hearing yesterday that artificial intelligence technology is like a bomb in a china shop, and that his worst fears are more worrying than anything else. And he says that we should learn lessons from food safety. Oh, sorry, apologies. Someone just put something else completely random in there. He said that his concern is, that my worst fears are that we, the industry, cause significant harm to the world, and says that regulatory intervention by government will be critical to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful models. Well, how worried should we be, and what sort of regulation is needed? Let's talk to Andrew Eborn. He's a media and technology lawyer and a futurist. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. It's a pleasure and indeed an honour to join you.
Oh, it's all mine. I finally got through that. So it's got a few random notes in there. It's a complicated story. Look, I've not even used this ChatGPT. Also, by the way, worst name of any product ever.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it? It's so difficult to say.
Isn't it? Exactly. But apparently this is all the rage, and basically no one's going to write a university essay ever again. If your husband sends you a romantic letter, it's been written by AI. The robot's going to take over. Right. We've heard all this for years. The Hollywood films all tell us that this is all going to lead to the end of the human race. Do you share those fears?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been talked about for generations. And basically, Stephen Hawking said that it's not only our greatest human achievement, it's also our biggest existential threat. And the reality is ChatGPT and also Bard, which is the Google equivalent, it's quite appropriate that I'm here in Stratford-upon-Avon talking about that as well. But basically, it can recreate anything that a human can do. And what happens is they're talking about 300 million jobs are going to be lost. It's a 15 trillion contribution to the global economy at the same sort of size. But what we need to do, and there's been lots of stories, virtually every day that you open a newspaper, there's a story about, the fake Pope being dressed in a white puffer. They always say the devil wears Prada, the Pope prefers puffer. But that was generated by AI. They also had last week a fake Drake song and also The Weeknd. And it sounded as though there was a collaboration between the two.
Yeah.
But again, that was created by AI. So we're living in a world where you absolutely have to question everything. Now, the biggest concern is to what extent we can actually control what AI might do. And this is what people are saying. And this is where Sam Altman and others, indeed Geoffrey Hinton, who was called the godfather of AI, he retired from Google because he wanted to speak out about it. He said Google behaved very responsibly, but he felt that his position might be compromised if he was still in Google whilst doing it. So what we need to do is to understand what the technology can do, but ensure that there are regulations in place, and also that copyright, which is a fundamental right for any creators, is not infringed as a result of it. Yeah. Because that's the way AI works. It scrapes the internet for all sorts of information and then can regurgitate creations based on that information.
But I mean, that's the thing. You said we must, don't trust anything. I now, when I see things on social media, and Twitter's the one I normally use, which actually, of course, is not where most people are. They're on, TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and the like. But actually, I see things and I'm sort of video. Okay, is that real? I'll start questioning it. I want to see whether or not that's from a trustworthy source. So for who is posting it, which organisation, which journalist, for instance, who is that someone I can trust? But most people won't wait for that. I'm always amazed that people get their news from Facebook. Oh, my mate sent me this. You've got no way of knowing whether it's true or not. We know that's why political parties, they love using Facebook and YouTube videos during election campaigns, because basically a lie is halfway around the world before the truth has got its boots on, and that is a real issue. Do you think that we are quite cynical, and actually most people, the people who most like to be fooled by this stuff, actually they already know not to trust anything?
Well, you're absolutely right, Julia. And what happens, we're drowning in a sea of information, most of which is false. And it's going to get worse. And this is why Geoffrey Hinton, as I say, he was talking about being concerned about what might happen. Bad robots, he called it, where it goes into the hands of people who use it for bad as opposed to for good. And they can spread propaganda. They can even faster than the social media. And the problem is, if we don't question everything, if there aren't those safeguards, that's the problem. It can rig elections. We had a recent case, for example, in a German magazine, which claimed to do an interview with Michael Schumacher, who obviously was involved in a tragic accident several years ago. And in the small print, they said this article was generated by AI. So people sort of turn around and the family might be suing and so on and so forth. The other difficulty is that where the AI doesn't know the answer, it makes it up. It's what's called hallucinations. And it will come up. I don't know if you ever try. I would recommend you do try it, because there are free versions out there, and understanding their technology will help us prepare for the future. But what happens if it doesn't? If it doesn't know the answer, what it does, it fills in the gap.
That's not good. That's what politicians do. I'll be used to that. I always prefer if someone says, I don't know. It's a perfectly valid answer to anything. Except that that's the thing you're in charge of. But political bias is another big issue, is that actually, a lot of these things, if you ask them a question, like I think some people have done it with ChatGPT, was Brexit a good idea? And they give a completely biased answer. And we already see your Google search will be completely biased if you do it about any of the big sort of culture war issues, or anything to do with, gender, race, trans, or anything like that. And there's a real worry that what we think of as neutral information no longer is neutral. There isn't any neutral information almost anymore. They pick and choose facts, they skew things, and it is affecting what people think of as facts.
No, you're absolutely right, Julia, and that's exactly what happens. It will give you whatever answer you want. It's rather like a lawyer. They're there to represent your case. You say, put forward the best argument for watching Julia every morning. It's easy to come up with loads, but it will basically do exactly that, and you can come up with vote for this political party or so on and so forth. And the trouble is, just as you pointed out earlier in your brilliant introduction, that misinformation can get spread very, very quickly. That's why we need that regulation, those regulations in place. But also from a copyright point of view, copyright creators, they're basically having all of their works taken, and you can basically get rid of people. You can have Bruce Willis, for example. He can no longer act because of his particular condition, but he was basically licensing the right to use his face and his voice to a Russian telecom firm, and he got paid zillions for that. That is the future. What we need to look at is understand the technology. And I travel, as you probably know, around the world talking about the technology and how we can basically harness it for good, but understand what the limitations are.
Absolutely. Andrew Eborn, such a pleasure talking to you. I hope you'll come on again. An intellectual property, media and technology lawyer and a futurist. I always love a futurist.